just about every scripture scholar believes that there are at least two authors to the book of Isaiah. And most scripture scholars, or many scripture scholars, perhaps not as many as think there are two authors, think that there are at least three authors to the book of Isaiah. Today, what we hear is the beginning of Deutero-Isaiah, or the second Isaiah. And Isaiah can basically be divided into two parts: the pre-exile Isaiah and the post-exile Isaiah. And this would be the very beginning of the post-exile Isaiah writings. Jerusalem has been conquered, Judah has been conquered, the people have been taken off into exile into Babylon, and they spent a harsh period of time, difficult period of time in exile. And that's coming to an end in this passage. And what Isaiah is saying, that God will speak these words of comfort, and God will tend to his people. It's really kind of an unusual situation where what we hear the prophet saying is that God says, well, maybe I've overdone it here. You know, the setting here for this prophecy is some kind of a divine council or divine assembly in the heavens, and God is speaking to this council and saying, you know, I may have taken it a step too far here. Israel has had to pay double, or Judah has had to pay double for their penalty here, and they need to be comforted. They need to know that despite their experience, that they have the assurance that I am here to comfort them. And so the one who is supposed to speak that word of comfort is not named, but that's really what the prophecy is about. That after all these difficult experiences, the people of Israel, the people who have been in exile, have to be somehow tended to. And the message then about tending to them is a twofold message. On the one hand, it talks about the power of God and how powerful God is. And at the same time that it talks about the power of God, that the word talks about the power of God, and proclaims, here is your God, standing up on the mountain, makes that proclamation, also says this very powerful God is also a very tender God. So tender that he will tend to his sheep and hold the lambs close to him. And it's that kind of tenderness. So it is this encouragement for us to recognize that in the midst of our harshest moments, in the midst of our most difficult times, the power of God is still present. And not only is the power of God present, but the gentleness of God works through our lives. The gospel passage, you know, we have a better or a more full or a fuller expression of that gospel passage in Luke. You know, this is kind of the slimmed down version. So in Luke, we had the lost coin, the lost sheep. It's the same kind of passage, it's the same story, basically. In Matthew, it's strictly focused on the lost sheep. And the fundamental meaning of that is, of course, we recognize that the 99 sheep are those who are, your good old faithful followers, and that the one sheep is the one who goes astray. There is a clear connection to the ones who have walked away from Jesus Christ, have walked away from the message. And that message, once again, is about the gentle God, a persistent and gentle God. The persistency of God to pursue us when we have walked astray, to seek us out and to bring us back. And to recognize in that there is this tremendous love that God has for us. And not love for just the flock. Every member of the flock experiences love, but love for the most detached member of the flock. I think that's an important message for us to know, that we are never beyond God's love and mercy. Ever. Never. That no one is ever beyond God's love and mercy. The people that we would consider the lowliest, the people that we consider the most immoral, the people that we consider the most estranged from God, God still loves them, and loves them deeply, and loves them so much that he pursues them. And if he can catch up with them, what he does is he embraces them and brings them back to the fold. In love, out of love for them. We sometimes, we kind of circle the wagons, or we get this herd mentality where we kind of, once somebody gets outside the herd, we kind of keep them out because they've made transgressions that we don't like and all the rest of it. We can keep pushing them away or preventing them to come in. That seems to be part of human nature. I don't know. And yet that's not what God does, and it's not what we're called to do. What we're called to do is to be reflective of God's love for those who are those we consider the lowliest or the most estranged. It's one of the more difficult things that we're called to do as Christians, as believers, is not to close ranks and not to keep people out of the flock, but to allow God's will and grace to work in those lives as well. If we took stances like that consistently, there would be so many people who made so many great contributions to the world that would have been excluded. Chief among them, very first one I can think of, is St. Paul. St. Paul, by all rights, should have been kept out, and yet experienced that love and grace of God and was brought back in and accomplished wonderful things. There are many people like that in the history of our faith. And so it's an important kind of thing for us to recognize that that seeking out of the lost sheep is seeking out the lowliness and embracing them with love and bringing them back.